Have you ever had one of those seasons in life where you finally break away from your past and some of the bad things there, and then you want to make sure that no matter what happens, you don't go back to that, like sometimes even back to that physical place? We're going to talk about that today from Genesis 24. Hey guys, and welcome back to God's Word Made Simple by Simple Servant Ministries. My name is Aaron Hawk, and if this is your first time visiting with us, I just want to say welcome and thank you for joining us today. God's Word Made Simple is an online discipleship ministry dedicated to taking God's Word and making it simple. We want to help you understand God's Word, apply it to your life, and grow in your relationship with the Lord. And by the way, guys, if you appreciate this ministry and this channel, at some point make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn that bell notification to all so you don't miss any future videos. Okay, guys, let's get into the text. So today we are doing Genesis chapter 24, verses 1 through 9, and specifically this section is looking for a wife for Isaac, Abraham's son, and this is right after the death of his mother. Now, whether those two are directly related or not, I'm not entirely sure, but either way, this is the time at which Abraham says, okay, we need to find a wife for my son. But the issue for him is that God called him to leave the land that he was in and go to this new land. And yet, he also wants his son to have a wife from that people group that he was part of. So this becomes kind of a conundrum. He doesn't want to go back because he doesn't want to get sucked back into those old ways. It would also be disobeying God for him to go back there. He was called to live in this new place now, the literal promised land. And this sort of sets the tone for the Jewish nation in general, even though this doesn't necessarily apply yet. The Jewish nation as a nation were commanded to only marry other Jewish people. They were not supposed to intermarry with the people in the land that they were living in or those lands that surrounded them. So even though that command was explicitly given yet later, it's clear that that idea is there within Abraham's mind and heart already, even before the Jewish nation really became a nation. So whatever the case, he does not want to have his son or himself go back to the land of his fathers, but he does want to find a bride for his son. So we're going to start in chapter 24, verse 1. Now Abraham was old, advanced in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in every way. And what an awesome testimony. All those years of struggling and striving and trying to figure things out and waiting on the Lord. And now he's able to live in the state of peace, knowing that God has indeed blessed him in the way that he promised and more. Verse 2, Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, so clearly the person who he trusts the most, who had charge of all that he owned, please place your hand under my thigh. Now this would have been a common way, you'll see this repeated later in the Old Testament, this would have been a common way of making an oath or a promise by making someone put their hand under the thigh. It's a very personal, intimate thing. I'm not going to go in depth in explaining all the details to it, and there's some obscurity to it anyway, so it's not worth getting into it. But, as far as why the thigh and all that. But the bottom line is that this was a common way of making someone make a promise, of taking an oath. So verse 3, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I live. So he already understands that these guys are not headed the same way spiritually that he is headed. And in his mind, taking a wife from his family is better. But you will go to my country and to my relatives and take a wife for my son Isaac. Now, of course, this is literally an arranged marriage. It's quite obvious that's what's going on here. And by the way, the Bible does not command arranged marriages. It does not forbid them. That's really up to the individual culture to decide how they want to handle marriage. So verse 5. The servant said to him, suppose the woman is not willing to follow me to this land. And that would have been normal, right? I mean, a stranger shows up, even if it is Abraham's servant, shows up, says, hey, I want to take a wife for my boss's kid here, but you have to move to a land that you don't know away from all your family. especially back then, that would have been very odd. That just didn't generally happen. So this is a valid concern on the servant's part. So he says, suppose the woman is not willing to follow me to this land. Should I take your son back to the land where you came? That's a valid question. Typically, then they would live within the same general vicinity as their family. Verse 6, then Abraham said to him, beware that you do not take my son back there! Exclamation mark, right? I mean, emphatically, absolutely no, Aaron paraphrase here, under no circumstances are you to take my son back there. Verse 7, the Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke to me and who swore to me, saying, to your descendants I will give this land. He will send his angel before you. So Abraham is saying he will send his angel before you. And remember, Abraham had had an interaction with God previously, right? And that was back in chapter 18. So if you want the background to that, you can check out the card there. You can see the video there. But he had already had an interaction with God. So he knew that God was superseding all of this. So he said, the Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke to me and who swore to me, saying, to your descendants. Now, how awesome is that? God actually swore to Abraham, right? To your descendants I will give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you will take a wife for my son from there. Verse 8, but if the woman is not willing to follow you, so in other words, now he's just trying to put the servant's mind at ease. Abraham already knows it's going to happen. How he knew that, I don't know, other than he just trusted God, and he knew that God had a plan and that this had to be it. I don't know the details, it doesn't explain, but this part I think is purely just to put his servant's mind at ease. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this my oath. Only do not take my son back there. So he does not want his son going back into that family, back into that land. Isaac has been promised to be the one to bring the descendants, and it was supposed to be in this land, the promised land. So Abraham is kind of deathly afraid, by the sound of it, of his son ever going back there. And I think there's a lot that we can glean from that. The natural and basic interpretation of this is quite simple. Isaac is the promised son. The land that he's in is the promised land. So no, don't violate what God has said. We're not going to play that game. But I think there are some spiritual applications that we can take from this about not returning to our old ways as well. Abraham was not the same man now that he was then. And he knows what the people there are like, and he knows the life that he has created for his son here. And I think he also, this is just me, but I think he also doesn't want those old ways creeping back in, and he knows that they would if his son returned there. So then verse 9, so the servant placed his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master and swore to him concerning this matter. So guys, this is a short video today, but this is a long chapter, and I definitely needed to break this one up so that the videos are not insanely long. This is a short one. All this is setting up the situation where the servant is going to go find a wife for Isaac, and then we'll see more as this chapter unfolds. So guys, if you appreciate this channel and this video, make sure you hit like, subscribe, bell icon notification to all so you don't miss any future videos. If you do want to share it, if you think this would be beneficial to someone, please hit that share button and share it with someone that would benefit. And, you know, guys, this is YouTube. Feel free to use this in your own personal Bible studies. If you're in a church that doesn't have the ability, or you just appreciate this content and you want to do a small group study on this series, feel free to use it that way as well. And as always, if you want to support the ministry, there is a link in the description. Guys, thank you very much, and God bless.